If you can change your outlook, change some of your values, and change your rules, you'll find there's a whole other set of rules out there that are more conducive for people who want to be rich. The story of Rich Dad, Poor Dad is really a story of two different fathers with two different sets of values and completely different sets of advice. So I don't mean to insult anybody or, to damage your values, but really that was the difference. For example, my poor dad always said, go to school, get good grades, get a high-paying job, work hard, live below your means, save money, get out of debt, have a good retirement plan. And that was my poor dad's values. My rich dad said, you probably won't get rich doing that way because very few people get rich following that plan.
But you thought saving money made you money.
If you take a look at this 40-year run on the dollar is designed economically to lose money every single year. So why would you save something that loses money every year? And what this means for somebody on retirement plans is that after you retire, the value of your dollar goes down and your cost of living keeps going up. To my rich dad, that was bad advice and made no sense. Again, it was different value. An important diagram my rich dad showed me when I was a little boy was a diagram known as a cash flow quadrant. And the quadrant is made up of the 4 different people who make up the world of business. So my rich dad said, in the world of business, there's E's. And E's stand for employees. An employee, he says, you can always tell who they are by their core values. And what the employee, whether the president or the janitor of a company, will always say the same words. The words are, I'm looking for a safe, secure job with benefits. That's what makes them an employee, because their core values are security. The other one of the 4 is the S, or the small business owner or the self-employed. And again, their core values will cause them to use the same words, which are, if you want it done right, do it by yourself. S means they're also solo. They're generally one-person act, or they operate by themselves. On the right side of the quadrant are the B's. And what Rich Dad said the B stood for was big business, or like Bill Gates. Forbes defines big business as 500 employees or more. And their words are different. They say, I'm looking for a good system, a good network, and the smartest people I know to help run my business. So they're unlike the S. They don't want to run the company by themselves. They want smart people to run their companies for them. And then the 4th of the quadrant is the I, and I stands for investor. These are people who have money work hard for them. These people are people who have people work hard for them. And these are the people that work hard for the rich here. So early on in my life, it was my poor dad who always said to me, Robert, go to school and so get a high-paying job. And so my poor dad's core value was to be an employee. He wanted job security, promotions, a steady paycheck, and all this. And so it was my rich dad who said to me, he says, Robert, if you really want to be rich, learn to build businesses. It made more sense to him to work hard to build a business, something you owned, and something you could pass on for generation to generation to your kids. Whereas my poor dad said, work hard, but my rich dad said, why would you work hard for something you'll never own and you can get fired from right away? Again, that was the difference in values. So my rich dad suggested I learn how to be a business owner and learn how to be an investor. And that's one of the big differences. On this side of the quadrant, these people here work for security. They work for money also. On this side over here, their key value that they want is they want freedom. They don't want to have to work at a job anymore. They don't want to have to work for the rest of their lives. So the beauty of building a business and learning how to invest is very simply that this is passive income. You work hard for a few years, but possibly for the rest of your life, income keeps flowing to you.
Of all the businesses out there, which type do you choose?
One of the reasons I consider a direct selling business a perfect business is very simply because the company will work with you to get the business skills that make you rich. Always remember that it's not money that makes you rich, it's business skills. And that's why it's a perfect business. They'll take as long as you like to get the skills to make the money. And that's a lifetime skill thing. The other part about it is the low startup cost. Where else can you get in for under $500 and get these skills? For people who want to make the shift over to the B quadrant, which is what I would recommend for people, one of the beauties of a network marketing company is that you can do that for a very low price. And that's why I talk to people about considering network marketing. If you're to build a Microsoft, it would take you hundreds of millions of dollars. But a network marketing company allows you to start at a very low rate. They'll be patient with you. They'll take their time to transition over here. And the reason why that time is so important to most people is it takes time to change those values. And the most important thing is once you take the time, let's say it takes 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever time it takes, once you see the value or the core values of this side and this side, you're unstoppable. Today, I would never go back and get a job. Why should I? I'd rather stay on this side, build companies, pay less taxes, and make more money. But the key is a person needs to change the values from my poor dad to the values of my rich dad. And that's one of the beauties of network marketing companies. They allow you the time, and at very low cost, they'll work with you to make that transition over there. The number one asset a person can build is build a business. That is the smartest thing you can do. Years ago, I decided not to follow the corporate ladder simply because, again, it was values. You know, my poor dad always said, go to school and get a high-paying job with the government or a big corporation. But my rich dad said, why would you work so hard at something you'll never own? You can't sell your job. You can't pass it on to your kids. So to me, it never made any sense. It made more sense to build my own business and hire other people. The other reason is that you really don't have much control if you're in the corporate ladder world. For example, you can get fired at any time. Or today we have what's called M&As, or mergers and acquisitions, where another company buys another company. So you could be a great employee, but the company that buys your company just fires you.
Wait a minute. This sounds too good to be true. Like one of those get-rich-quick schemes.
It's not a get-rich-quick formula. You don't just do it overnight. It takes time. I still remember the first time I made that transition was back in 1978 when I fully quit my job and I had to depend upon my company that I was building to support me. So I understand the fear. The beauty, the most important thing to remember is this. There's two kinds of people in the world. There are the types that will say, you'll never make it. And there was I had a lot of people, a lot of friends and family saying that. You're stupid, don't do it. And the second type were the people that said, go for it, you can do it. Don't worry about it, we'll cover you. So the most important thing is support of friends and family. One of the beauties of a direct selling company is that they provide that personal support to you for as long as it takes you to make the journey from the left side to my rich dad side. One of the challenges of being self-employed is that you're your own boss. You're the solo act. Like in the S quadrant, you're the individual. You do it on your own. Whereas in the B quadrant, you're a team player. You have to depend upon your team and count on your team. So the problem with being an S is that, let's say you're in a traffic accident, there goes your income. And let's say you get older and you haven't set enough money aside to retire on, that means you'll probably have to work for the rest of your life because you don't have anybody else to fall back on, not a team to count on. So one of the problems with the S, although most people say it's the most satisfying of all work, it is a solo act, and you're totally on your own. Personally, I'd rather be a member of a team. You know, they can count on me and I can count on them. We all know the world has changed, but sometimes the hardest thing to change is ourselves. And being an old guy, I sort of know the older I get, I sometimes get more set in my ways. And I think that's one of the things that a direct selling business offers people, why it's the perfect business. They allow you to take your time to make the mental, emotional, and physical changes required to move from the left side to the rich dad side. I think that's a big thing. It's a very gracious, it's a very elegant way, it's a patient way of supporting you in making the changes of your life. So please remember, change always creates upset, but sometimes we all know we have to make those changes. And if you know, it's time for you to make that change.
Just a number, it's just what the return is.
Is cash on cash when you factor in, is that appreciation or just the cash on?
Just the cash. We're taking into account how much cash have we put into it and how much cash are we pulling out. Now it goes without saying that a house in a high appreciation area is going to be more valuable to you than one that's depreciating in value, but we're just looking at cash on cash for now. When we then compare it with the second property, well, it's not really a comparison. The second one we looked at was that brick one. Remember the red brick one that
Oh, the
was
fixer-upper?
broken? Well, fixer-upper. I call it a blower-upper because that's about all it's good for. We had an idea of what the rental would be on that. We knew that the asking price was $102,000. But I haven't even gone through the exercise here because, quite frankly, personally, I wouldn't want to own that. I wouldn't want to attempt to fix it up.
Well, it'd be too expensive to fix up.
Right, and the returns then would be way down there.
You'd have so much money going out, and you're a very good handyman, but what do you think?
Yeah, it's too much work. I mean, you'd have to start from over, basically. It's just too much work there.
And no matter how handy a person is to be able to do something up themselves, it may not be a good use of their time. You might be better off spending that time looking for the next best deal.
Right, so it's a good area, but the house is not that good. I mean, it's beyond, I think it's too bad.
Right, right, beyond redemption. So we then consider the third house we've got here, which was very close by to the brick one that we've dismissed. It was that green cottage that was very charming.
Oh, yeah, it looked the same.
Yeah,
Almost the same
it was
period,
wooden,
yeah.
but and brick, and it looked very similar. The price in this case was $129,900. Again, we figured that we can offer something just a little bit less, about $4,000 less. We're working out our calculations on the basis of buying it for $125,000. Again, we've got our rental in there based on what the agents have told us and what we know we can get for those number of bedrooms. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, $1,150 in rent, the same 5% vacancy rate, the same factors that we're taking into account in terms of expenses and property taxes and the like. In this case, our cash-on-cash return is 7.7%. So it's almost exactly half. And here's something you now have to take into consideration. Do you want this first house that's in an area that's reasonably flat at 14.4%? Or do you prefer this one here, the green one, that's in an up-and-coming area at only 7.7%?
Right, let's stress again. The greenhouse was an area that's been coming down for years, and now it's on this rebound up. And all the young professionals are moving on. So you as an investor have got to say, am I willing to bet on the 7.7% cash return, the income, versus a capital gain that might be bigger? I think the first house would be a steady capital gain, but not as spectacular if things go the way we want them, right?
Right. And in general, that is true. Where you have a high capital growth, you tend to have lower returns, and conversely, where you have high returns, you have lower capital growth. And this is a perfect example of that. Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing for me is that if we go on to the house that we spotted when we looked at the greenhouse, remember across the road we saw the for sale sign? We didn't expect it to be much, but when we went inside we were all pretty surprised.
Right.
All the money's been spent on fixing it up.
It's been spent. And the asking price in this case was $114,000. And at this point I'd say, who in their right mind would buy that red brick house for $102 when you can buy the white one for $114 that's all done up? But even so, let's also assume we can buy it at about $4,000 below the asking price. That brings it in at $110,000. The rental in this case is very similar, $1,150. It's also 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It's across the road from the greenhouse, so we'd expect the rentals to be about the same. We still have a 5% vacancy rate, and all the other numbers are the same. We now get a cash-on-cash return of 19.5%.
Right across the street.
Across the street from each other. It's nearly triple.
And a lower down payment.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, it really highlights the importance of doing the analysis.
In this program, we'll have actually worksheets here. We'll show you how it's done and all this. I'm not that good at numbers or math, and yet it's really simple. It's simple addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Just knowing where the numbers go is pretty common sense. And Dolph just does it so automatically in his head that he kind of intimidates people. But trust me, it's a very simple process.
So in this case, the return is nearly 20%. That would seem to me to be a pretty spectacular return in a day and age where currently, if you put that deposit in the bank on deposit, you could expect to get maybe 2, if you're lucky, 3% interest on it, and that would be taxable. Now, of course, real estate is taxable, but only after you've taken account of all kinds of deductions that you can't get in any other investment. So you're going to get very close to your 19.5% return as an after-tax return. And so to me, the interesting thing about doing the analysis is it quickly highlights which one is great and which one is still pretty good and which one is mediocre. Because let's face it, if you're used to putting your money in the bank at 2% taxable, 7.7% is still pretty good. Yeah. It's spectacular. However, you just have to look around a little bit, as we did, during the day, and you will find something even greater.
Well, the good thing about this 19 or 20%, that's just cash on cash. If you bet that that neighborhood is going to come up faster, your overall gain could be even more spectacular.
It will be. And this cash-on-cash return is just in year one. We can reasonably expect that after a year, the rentals will go up incrementally, and the year after that, they'll go up again. Your deposit hasn't gone up. Your mortgage payments, at worst, will stay the same if you're on interest only, and if you're on a P&I mortgage, that's where you pay down some of the principal every year, your payments will go down. So that after a while, you are getting more and more money, and it's indexed for inflation.
And the good thing about investment real estate is like right now, you've borrowed money from the bank, and you've got to pay it back.
Right.
But when you invest in a piece of property, you use your banker's money, and your tenant pays off your mortgage for you. So that's why, when we talk about people saying, let's get out of debt, let's get out of debt, are you deeply in debt?
I'm horrendously in debt, but I love it.
Yes, I am deeply, deeply in debt.
I don't sleep well at night if I don't have enough debt,
But there's good debt and bad debt. And so this is what we're talking about here. This is good debt because, number one, it's your banker's money. Number two, your tenant's going to pay you for it. And number three, the appreciation that goes up, guess what? Your banker doesn't want any of that. The depreciation, the tax advantages, your banker doesn't want any of that either. They're passing that all on to you. And when you sell the property or you can borrow the money back out again, that money is basically tax-free or tax-deferred. So that's why I think, investment real estate is a smart way for a young couple like you to go. Stay within this price range until you gain more experience and things like that. And this makes a lot of sense.
Right. Okay, so I think we agree we're going to put offers in on all three properties. And what we're looking at with this first one, the one close to where you live, is we're going to offer $135,000. Now, we might get, say, an 80% first mortgage, which in this case would be $105,000. We can ask the sellers to leave in a 20% mortgage for the remaining $20,000.
It's a carryback like an IOU.
It's a carryback. It's seller finance or vendor finance.
So that's a no money down deal on that one.
Right. 100% financing, 80% comes from the bank, the remaining 20% comes from the seller.
That'd be
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
That'd be a great deal.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, on the second one, the greenhouse, I think we all agree that it's a very good property. It's possibly worth the asking price. What I suggest we do in that case is offer the asking price. However, we might still structure it in a way so that there's no money required on the part of Ryan and Kim.
Yeah, he could ask his dad for the money or her dad for money and say they'd be partners in the deal.
Right, or friends for that matter. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And because this house had a beautiful backyard, was large, and they could put up a guest house, greatly improve the value.
And the house that's already there has a lot of charm, so that gives it extra appeal.
Which they could get a higher loan value then once that was done.
Right.
Good.
And then the third one, the White House, which in some ways is the highest returning property, I think we agreed we'd come in at $110,000. Now, one way of structuring this so that you might need to put in any cash is to ask for a delayed closing. You might ask for a delayed closing of 3 or 4 months. And in the meantime, you would have the right of access to do some of those improvements. For instance, Ryan, you might want to put up that carport already. And then just before you close, you'd send the appraisers back in to get a new appraisal. And instead of coming in at 114, it might come in at 125 or 130 after you've done that work. You get a first mortgage based on that, and that might cover your acquisition cost.
So that means if the value goes up, the banker will lend you more money, which means you put less money down.
Right. And these are just some of the ways. There are, in fact, many, many ways that we cover in the program that you can acquire property without having to put any of your own cash into the deal. The important thing to note is that we're putting in the offers, because until you physically submit an offer, there